Hello my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/PettyRevenge, where people get little wins on others, and the stories are hilariously satisfying. And in today's episode, guys, a Karen's bad review on a store backfires on her so hard. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories. Hit subscribe if you haven't, and as always, you can send or link your Reddit post to this email right here. We're diving in. So this took place in January 2022. A new wave of COVID had hit, and it devastated the workforce in the major cities here. On average, about half the workforce for any industry was homesick for about a week at the same time. Shelves in supermarkets weren't stocked because there weren't enough workers to keep them full, and the number of bus routes were cut in half. The list goes on. At my retail store, all but 2 of us were sick. With 2 people on staff, we couldn't get to everything, so we had to decide what parts of the job we'd neglect. And most of the revenue is from online sales, so we decided to close the store and focus on dispatching online orders. We still had to answer phone calls and emails though, so we're very stressed. Now, this was only happening in the major cities, of course, as more rural locations dodged the major disruptions. So one day, I get a call from a customer. The guy had placed an online order the day prior, paid for express post, but noticed it hadn't been sent. So he calls and asked why it hadn't been sent. So I take a look at his account and saw that he lived in a rural town hours away, and this was the conversation. He basically says, "Hi, I placed an order yesterday with express post. Why hasn't it been sent yet?" At that I reply, "I'm very sorry. There's only 2 of us on staff because of COVID, and we're doing the best we can to keep up with online orders." At that he replies, "But I paid for express. I should have it." I reply, "Yes, and as I explained, there's only 2 of us on staff. We've had to close the store and there's lots of orders to pack, and we're packing them from oldest to newest, and we're trying our best." At that, he responds, "Well, your best isn't good enough. I paid for express, and it should have been sent out by now." Hearing him say that, I was thinking, my best wasn't good enough? What an absolute piece of crap. So at this point, I had dealt with enough stress, so I let him have it. I tell him, paying for express doesn't mean we pack the order faster. It means that once the courier has it, they deliver it to you faster. That extra money you spent doesn't go to me or this company. It goes to the courier. And there's orders older than yours, and they have priority. They've waited longer than you, and they'll be packed first. At that, the guy responds, "I don't care. You need to ship it today." I tell him I can't promise that. Do you have any idea what COVID's done to the workforce here? The guy says, "No, and I don't care. If you don't ship my order today, I promise I will never shop with you again." Hearing him say that, I genuinely laughed out loud, and I said I literally could not care less. It's no skin off my nose. At that point, I hung up. And for the entree of my revenge, I purposely skipped his order even though I caught up to it. It got sent the next day. But the main course though, that was tasty. So I blocked the guy's account so he couldn't shop with us again because he promised he wouldn't. So I wanted to make sure he didn't break his promise. The guy tried to though. He made another account and I recognized the name, confirmed it was him through the shipping address, and I canceled the order and processed the refund. For Revenge's desserts, I did something truly petty. So when you process a refund, you reverse the payment made by the debit card. You can then put a note in it when you do so the customer knows why that money is reappearing in their bank. The note I put was, "To help you keep your promise." Guys, this is an absolutely brilliant revenge, and I love how OP kept the guy accountable for what he said. Because we all know Karens lie, right? When they say they'll never shop here again, they rarely mean it. And listen, OP's a freaking hero to go through those lengths. And for all who are wondering what was so darn important that he needed right away, OP comes into the comments and says that it was a packet of 12 Target arrow tips. One night, I had a knock at my door from the funeral home owners down the street. They told me that they had just bought the property between us and they were going to demolish the house to build a parking lot. They said they wanted to build a nice vinyl fence between us and they would pay for everything. All they needed was for me to sign an agreement saying that it was okay for them to build the fence. The agreement was 3 pages long. I told them I'd be happy to take the agreement and read and sign it tomorrow because at that point it was 9 p.m. They told me they couldn't leave the document with me and I had to sign it right now. I responded that I don't ever sign any legal documents without reading them completely, and I don't have the time right now to read it, and then suggested they mail me a copy. After this, they got very pushy and told me I have to sign it and I have to do it right now. At this point, I told them to get off my property and slammed my door shut. So I did some research, and city code required them to build a very specific type of fence because we had 2 different zonings of property next to each other. A bit later, they built a foam core concrete fence that was 8 feet tall. Now it did look good, and to an untrained eye, it looked to meet the requirements of the city ordinance. At this time, I also received a letter from their lawyer about the old wooden fence that they also left standing that was on their side of the property line, saying that if I tore it down, repaired it, or did anything else to it, they would take legal action against me. So cue the petty revenge. I found a city ordinance that outlaws a fence within a fence. It basically says that there's only 1 fence allowed per property line. And I took that to the city planning commission and they forced my neighbor to remove the wooden fence. I then refused to allow him or his workers onto my property. This meant that they had to go over the 8-foot concrete fence to remove the old wood fence. After that was completed, I went back to the planning commission to demand the correct fence be built. City ordinance stipulated an 8-foot tall solid masonry fence and explicitly forbid the use of foam core fencing in this situation. The commission sided with me and they made him tear out his brand new fence. After that, he put up a temporary chain link fence between our properties that was freestanding. The wind kept blowing it down, so I asked him to take care of it so that my chickens don't get out of my yard. He told me to figure it out myself. Enter the malicious compliance. So I welded his rented fence pieces together. They were no longer portable, but they stopped blowing down. They were also taking a really long time to get a permanent fence in, so I ordered a Borat-style neon green Speedo. You should Google it to understand it. I then wore that during the nights in the summer while I sat at my fire pit. The guests of the funerals could clearly see all of me lit up in the twilight. I like to think that this helped motivate them to put in an opaque fence. When he finally put up the correct fence, his workers trampled about 30 feet of my rose bushes and killed them. So I had the planning commission order him to pay me damages for the roses. The workers also broke some of my sprinklers, and I was able to force him to repair those too. To top this all off, he stained his side of the new fence, and he left mine with only stain splatters and stain drips. So I went back to the city ordinances and found one that prohibited this exact situation. Back to the commission I went. After more fighting, he had to pay to stain my side of the fence too. Now it did take 5.5 years of petty revenge, but now I have a beautiful tall fence to keep my yard quiet and safe. It added a lot of value to my property too. So hey, Mr. and Mrs. Funeral Home, sign that. Guys, this petty revenge totally dips into pro territory for sure. And this is why you don't mess with people and why you shouldn't bully them, because you never know how far somebody will go to get revenge. In this case, almost 6 years. Little did those owners know that messing with OP would be their funeral, and I love it. So I work at a rather famous home supply and maintenance store. I won't say the name just in case, but to set the scene, about a month or so ago, Karen and her husband came in to buy an appliance. They happened to come on a very busy day, and we only had 2 people in appliances, one of whom was going on her lunch. Well, apparently Karen wasn't happy that a couple of men who'd already been waiting were served ahead of her, and she pitched a tantrum, even going as far as to go up to the girl leaving that was going for her break, who was no longer in uniform, and she berated her for ignoring her. The girl told her multiple times that she wasn't on the clock, and Karen told her that that didn't matter. She would help them right then and there because the customer comes first. The girl told her she could wait or take her business elsewhere and went about her business. Now this apparently pissed off Karen and her husband, and he proceeded to call customer service and began yelling at me, saying that he's a GD man and we weren't gonna serve other men before his wife, that we would effing serve him first. Hearing him say that to me, I just laughed at him and I said that's not how things work, and hung up the phone. We don't take abuse at my store, and I definitely refuse to, and the managers generally support that. So the funny part is, our town has a local Facebook page where you can post reviews and events, and Karen decided to make a massive post about what happened. Only she actually didn't. Karen twisted it to make it seem that she'd been purposely ignored, denied service, and that she and her husband had been verbally abused by every employee in the store. Of course, at first, she did get sympathy from a lot of women with the same mentality. A lot of "nobody wants to work anymore" comments. But one of our cashiers happened to be told about it and showed me, and I'm really petty. I'll admit it beforehand. So I make a fake Facebook account and join the town's page, and needless to say, I first commented in explicit detail everything that actually happened, including direct quotes from the other girl. And then, to sink the F you Karen knife a little bit deeper, I copied my post and replied to every single comment on her post saying, "This actually isn't what happened. What actually happened was..." And then I told them the story. Within moments, the entire town turns on Karen. Hundreds of comments calling her a liar and a horrid person. And the next morning, the post was gone, and she's never returned to our store. Now, was I a bit of a Karen myself? Maybe, but when it comes to my fellow employees, I tend to fight petty fire with petty fire. And thanks to this situation, and several more since then, I've become the go-to for dealing with Karens and rude customers when my coworkers can't get a hold of a manager. No way this can end badly, right? All I can say is bravo OP, this is exactly what she gets. So the moral of the story is don't ever lie, and that's the power of community Facebook pages, guys. You never want to get caught in a lie like Karen did, because everybody will turn on you, and there's no coming back. So my ex broke up with me just about a year into us dating. In hindsight, she was awful, but I was blind to it all. She broke up with me over the phone, which did seem a little informal from all the time we spent together. So fast forward a week after that, it was confirmed that she was in fact seeing another man while dating me. I didn't confront her about it because I realized things just don't work out sometimes, but it was the way she went about it that irked me. Now I'm old enough to accept that people are just a-holes, but I also felt that she was getting away with something without even feeling a bit of remorse. I then remembered for Christmas that I bought us a really expensive couples massage spa package because she would always say how she wanted to do something like that. I had purchased some big package from a local place that roughly costed $600. Obviously, I didn't have the certificate with me, so I decided to go to the spa and make up a story of how I lost the certificate. I showed them the receipt, showed them my credit card charge, and they wound up issuing me a new gift card and canceling the other. This was over a year ago, and frankly, I forgot about it. So today, I get a call from her, which is first contact in a year since breaking up, and she's screaming at me over the phone, saying that that certificate is no good, and the spa place accused her of stealing, and what a piece of crap I was for reporting it to be such. I then just politely explained that I didn't think she was deserving of it, and if she really wanted to, she could just have Mark, the new guy, pay for a new one. I then hung up. I'm gonna make an appointment to use that card with my new girlfriend soon. Mission accomplished. Oh my goodness, guys, reading this, I'm praying that the girlfriend presented that gift card after she got the massage and ended up having to pay out of pocket for it. My girlfriend and I have been dating for almost a year now. She's in university, living in the university residence, and I work full-time and have my own place. Her residence has some very strict rules, such as no male guests aside from her parents and a very strict curfew. This will be important later. Before the Easter holidays, a few friends and I planned a road trip, and I invited her, but she declined. The day before my road trip, I decided to get some new earbuds for the trip. My girlfriend came along with me to the shop. Once there, my girlfriend decided that she would like a pair of AirPods. I relented, but I bought her a pair and got myself some Bose earbuds since I preferred those, and I don't have an iPhone. On our way back to the university, she mentioned that she liked my earbuds since they looked better than AirPods. So she took them, paired them to her phone, and started playing around with them. I didn't think much of it until she said she wanted them and wanted to trade her AirPods with my earbuds. I told her no because I don't have an iPhone, so AirPods would be useless to me, which I found out later they work pretty well on Android. I then suggested that we exchange hers when I get back, since going back now would make her late for curfew. She then kept insisting, saying it would make her happy. I told her I needed them for my trip in the morning, which seemed to be the end of it. We then get to her residence, and as I was parking, she throws her AirPods at me and says, "Thanks for the trade," and then jumped out of the moving car, still wearing my earbuds. I was shocked, and it did take me a second to realize that she had just ran away with my earbuds. I then parked, and then ran after her, but I wasn't fast enough. She'd already entered the building. I then stand at the entrance with two very burly guards giving me the stink eye, while I shouted for her to come back, and she blew me a kiss and went upstairs. I then shouted a bit more until the guards very politely asked me to leave. I was livid. She had just robbed me, and there was nothing I could do. So I stalked back to my car fuming and cursing. However, I started laughing when I got to my car because on the ground near the passenger side door was a lovely white box. It seems in her mad dash to run away, she had accidentally dropped the charging case. I picked it up and my day suddenly got brighter and I drove back to the shop. I then exchanged the AirPods, got new earbuds, and then blocked her, and the next morning went for my road trip. I unblocked her when I got back yesterday, ready to deal with the crap storm, and called her. At first, she was sweet and asked me about my trip, and then she asked if she had left the charging case for her earbuds in my car. I told her I returned the AirPods and exchanged them for new earbuds, and that since my new earbuds didn't work with my old charging case, I threw it away because I didn't need it. Hearing me say that triggered her, and she starts shouting at me, calling me an a-hole and demanding I buy her a new pair of earbuds or we're done. At that I say, okay, I guess we're done, and then hung up. I've been laughing ever since. You know what, all I can say is good riddance. Like, do you want to keep dating a person who's that frickin' entitled? Like, the AirPods thing was the perfect excuse to bail out of that relationship, because that's much better than marrying crazy and potentially having her take his house in the future. So recently, I told the story of how I apparently got the title of Queen of Pettiness after knocking my cousin down a couple of pegs. But since I spoke about 3 cousins, I was asked to talk about the other 2, which I don't mind, so here we go. For starters, I had 3 cousins in my family that did not like me for me. I was a Class A nerd who loved video games, science fiction, novels, Dungeons and Dragons, writing, etc. I still am, happy to say. However, my cousins, who we'll call TT, CC, and Didi, were determined to change me, and their way of changing me was through tormenting me. Now, I'm not going to get into what they did to me, but I will say that Didi was the one I ended up hating and refusing to acknowledge or talk to. Now, CC was that cousin who was mean for meanness' sake. She didn't care who she was talking to, and she was never punished for it, as her mom would always come to her defense. When it came down to me, she would always call me various homophobic slurs that I don't even want to repeat. She would do that as well as hide my things while mocking me while I'd look for them. My grandma couldn't do much, as Cece would retreat to her mother and retaliate later. Well, during her 8th grade year, she learned a very expensive lesson. When I was younger, I was a whiz at math. It was also something that Cece would like to make fun of, so when my aunt asked me if I could tutor Cece for her final, I quickly said, oh hell nah. My grandma was shocked, but not by my response. She saw that coming. What she was shocked about was the fact that I swore in front of her. My aunt was livid and demanded to know why. So I pretty much tell her, why the heck would I offer my skill set to someone who's shown me nothing but disrespect? At that my aunt says, don't be like that, she's your family. And at that I respond, funny because last I checked, family's not supposed to make you feel like crap about the gifts that God has given you. Now this went on for about 10 minutes when my aunt finally realized that I wasn't budging, and she says, fine, I'll pay you. I tell her you couldn't afford me, and my aunt says, you're seriously just gonna let your cousin fail to be spiteful? At that I smiled and said, you know, you're putting a lot of effort into changing my mind. Where was this effort when I begged you to make Cece leave me alone? At that, my aunt rolls her eyes and says, stop bringing up the past. And that's when Grandma finally spoke up. Grandma says, you're making OP's point. You can't insult him and then ask for his help. It doesn't work that way. That's not how I raised him or any of you. My aunt was then told to leave after trying to argue her point with an old man, whose threshold for bullcrap was much lower than mine. So the next day, Cece came to me and began her nonsense. She kicked it into overdrive as she was really trying to get a reaction out of me by saying every hateful thing she could think of. And this time, my cousin TT was with me, and he made the first move saying, Cece, what's your problem with OP? Cece says, he's gonna make me fail, so he deserves this. At that, TT made a what nonsense face and asked one question. The question was, so your logic is to piss off the only person who can help you pass until he says yes? Cece says, I'll stop when he says yes. Cece then kept going until my grandma steps in and told her to shut up. Cece then tried to get one more dig at me, which was a bad move. And my grandma whacked Cece in the face and dared her to say something else. Cece's eyes watered and she looked at me, TT, and Grandma. And I smiled because she tried to say something only to be slapped again. I remarked that this was entertaining, and I decided to walk away. And as I did, I called back to my cousin saying, if you can at least get a 70, you can pass with a low D. So she ended up not passing and had to go to summer school, which her mom then blamed me for. And my response was, maybe if you didn't raise your hellspawn to be a bitch, I would have been willing to help. My grandma did ground me for calling a woman a bitch around her, but she wholeheartedly agreed. Cece never looked at me again, not even a simple hello, and I'm okay with that. The last thing I know about her is she's married with 3 kids. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/PettyRevenge. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories today. I hope you didn't shake your heads too hard. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, I will link it right here. It's an r/entitled people episode, where OP tells a tale about this entitled Karen family who comes in and destroys her hotel over a hot tub. If you haven't heard it, go check it out. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.